All right, I think we can get started here. My name is Bree Callahan. I'm with the Water Center at Penn. I'm the Senior Research Manager there. I'm so excited to see everybody joining in, putting in the chat where they're coming from. This is awesome, seeing quite a range, which is just amazing. We're here for the using data to deliver water affordability, how cities are automatically enrolling eligible residents. And we've got some great partners and speakers here from the NRDC, National Consumer Law Center, and our partners at the Mayor's Innovation Project, who are all co-hosting with us here at the Water Center. So it's great to see everybody. We'll note that we are recording this webinar, so just keep that in mind. And if you're interested in putting, your questions in the chat while everybody's presenting, please do so. We'll get to those at the end. We're hoping we're going to have some time at the end. So Emma, if you could advance to the next slide. Awesome. So just a quick note about the Water Center. We are an applied research center here at the University of Pennsylvania, situated in the in the School of Arts and Sciences. We partner with communities to identify integrated solutions to the challenges facing water systems and watersheds. And you can see on this slide the things that we really focus on. And we're really focused on these 4 core areas: water equity, water resilience, water leadership, and water innovation. Next slide, please. And so behind this webinar, we've really been working on water affordability issues. Water Center's been working on that for quite a few years now. We have been looking at this trilemma for water service providers, balancing the investment in infrastructure and affordability and fiscal stability. So as you can take a look at this slide, you can see, there are really 3 options with this trilemma, and it's definitely a balance. You can't have all 3 at once. So that is definitely what a lot of water service providers are struggling with, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Next slide, please. So I'm so excited about the speakers that we have with us today. First, to kick us off, we're going to be hearing from Olivia Wine, Senior Attorney at the National Consumer Law Center. Then next, Larry Levine, Director of the Urban Water Infrastructure and Senior Attorney at NRDC. Then we've got Heather Sackett, Water Bill Assistance Program Coordinator at the City of Westminster, Colorado. Susan Crosby, Deputy Revenue Commissioner at the Philadelphia Water Revenue Bureau, and Casey Henderson, Director of Research Analytics and Evaluation at the City of Philadelphia's Office of Integrated Data and Research. And I'll let them all introduce themselves and turn it over to Olivia.
Thanks. I just wanted to thank everybody for their time. We have actually, NRDC and NCLC, been working on a series on water affordability. And today's webinar is a sort of deeper dive into the question of, I've created this low-income assistance program, but how do I really increase participation? It's not a unique problem. There's a QR code to our report. Next slide, please. Just stepping back for a moment, there's a brief description of NRDC and the National Consumer Law Center, noting that we are similar in age and really enjoy sort of this collaboration and see this as an intersectional issue between the environment and consumer protection. Next slide, please. So what I'm about to say is probably not news to most of you, that water is an essential service, but for too many, it's not affordable. And the unaffordable problem is quite huge. 12.1 to 19.2 million households lack affordable water service, and the cost of water is growing. So again, once we create these programs, how do we find these households? Next slide. Also, some context that water affordability is an issue of environmental justice and racial justice. These impacts are not evenly distributed, and lower income communities and communities of color are especially hard hit. This is a report by the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I highly recommend it if you haven't taken a look at it. Next slide, please. This is our original report in 2022. It's an advocacy toolkit, sort of how to get started in designing an affordability program, different approaches, different aspects of the water affordability problem. There is a QR code, so hopefully you'll be able to take a look at this after the webinar. Next slide. So I just wanted to sort of talk about the universality of the challenge here with enrollment into assistance and affordability programs. Where these programs exist, they often struggle with low participation rates, and it's not unique to water programs. And there can be multiple reasons for these low participation rates. We're looking at one strategy, the data sharing, to sort of address several of those barriers, but it won't address all of the barriers. And next slide. Here are the challenges that data sharing can help address. For low-income households, there are multiple barriers when it comes to means-tested assistance programs. You know, there's the knowing that it exists. There's the compliance costs. There's psychological barriers. Here with this data sharing, we're going to talk about, you know, how cities have been able to design data sharing to get at these particular problems, you know, the knowledge gap, knowing that the program exists and how to apply. The difficulty in the mechanisms of how to apply. You may have, you know, portals into a program that are online only, and a population that has challenges with digital literacy skills. You know, for example, how do you upload a document properly? The language barrier of the application and the instructions. These are all sort of the mechanics of how you apply can be a barrier. There's also just the need to gather multiple sensitive documentation. And then with each assistance program that you may be eligible for, you sort of do a variation of a similar drill with a very, you know, many of the same documents, but how you are applying may vary, and where you go to apply could vary. So there's a time tax to applying for these programs for the household. So all of these can sort of act to deter people from very important assistance. Next slide. When we talk in our report about partner programs, we're talking about identifying programs that are serving similar low-income populations or households, and programs that have already gathered similar documentation in their eligibility determination. So these are programs that will have relevant data. If you think about like an application form and all those data fields, you know, these programs being able to sort of pre-fill or take care of, you know, those key data fields, particularly if you have a situation where we call it categorical eligibility. So for example, if the low-income water assistance program deems anyone participating in SNAP or Medicaid or the low-income home energy assistance program is automatically eligible, then, you know, partnering with programs, you know, the administrator of those programs and the data sharing would essentially be, you know, do we have the same household, and is it a yes, no? You know, are they in or are they not in that qualifying program? So that is the type of data sharing and efficiencies that we're looking at as one example. So it's a win-win from the household's point of view. It minimizes the need to sort of continue to gather the same types of sensitive documentation and sort of figure out how to upload it or perhaps give it to a utility company. Incomplete applications are a universal problem with low-income assistance programs. So this can sort of minimize this. If we can streamline the application process, sort of rely on another program's eligibility determination for the water assistance program, minimizes the amount of documentation the household has to produce, also minimizes the amount of documentation that the utility has to hold on to. So again, lots of efficiencies, lots of wins if these things can be designed, to everybody's satisfaction. Next slide. So we've been looking at examples of a wide array of programs that have been sharing data with low-income water assistance programs or low-income energy assistance programs. So we're looking at federally funded programs, local programs, ratepayer-funded energy assistance programs, and then other state programs like subsidized health insurance or general assistance or specific programs targeting older adults or people with disabilities. Next slide. I talk a little bit about automatic enrollment. That is, you've got a categorical eligibility situation, an ability to sort of get all of the data fields filled in your income, in your enrollment application form without the household needing to sort of duplicate efforts and sort of, provide similar information again. If you're partnering with another program serving similar populations, gathering similar data. Because you have got this overlap of populations served by these low-income programs, you can have more targeted outreach. You can use these processes also when it comes to verification of eligibility and also recertification when it, in a year or 2 years, whenever the program deems the household needs to, again, sort of show that they're still eligible. These same processes build in those efficiencies. You can also use this form of identifying eligible households or low-income households. For example, the LIHEAP population for certain shutoff protections in certain situations. For example, the extreme heat dome effect going on right now on the eastern part of the country. Next slide. I'll turn it over to Larry on how to get started.
Right. Thanks, Olivia. So again, I'm Larry Levine with NRDC and a co-author of the report along with Olivia. I'm going to try to breeze quickly through some slides, giving an overview of what our findings and takeaways were from a series of case studies that really form a core of the report. And I'm going to not spend too much time on it because you're going to get to hear in the second half of the webinar from 2 different cities that were subject to the case studies and that have really a lot to learn from them. So, how to get started. This sounds, if you're a program administrator or you're thinking of how to design or develop a program, this may sound intimidating. It's going to look different for different programs, right? And that's one of the things we learned from our case studies. There's not one right way to do it. Once you start committing to it and figuring out with a partner program how you can make it work, you're going to find your way to make it work. And so the key through lines that we found through all of our interviews for the case studies, having the vision and a collaborative spirit, gathering the right people with the right skill sets. It might be from different parts of the utility or the agency, having open lines of communications, and a commitment to an iterative process, recognizing that it's going to evolve over time, and you don't need to get everything perfect or meet every ambition from the very start. Next slide. So here's just one example, and actually Olivia may have sort of touched on this earlier, so I'll be very brief here. There can be differences, a very simple example, in how data are managed between different programs and their IT systems, different ways of storing and collecting name and address information, for example. There are ways to deal with that. One very simple way, which is not the only way, is if you have your benefits, excuse me, your income thresholds for eligibility aligned between two programs, you can make it so that you need only shared back and forth. But as long as you can identify this customer is in this program, yes, no, they're going to be able to be in the water program. But we're going to hear some more nuanced approaches as well from Philly in their presentation. Next slide. So here are the key lessons learned from all these case studies, about a dozen of them. The top line message we want you to leave with today is that data sharing can dramatically increase participation in water assistance and affordability programs, and especially if you can do it in a way that leads to automatic enrollment without the need for water customers to apply. And you're not supposed to be able to necessarily read these three graphs here, but what I want you to be able to notice, just from the colors here and the size of the different lines and bars, in each one of these, Philadelphia, Westminster, California, progressing over time from the left side to the right side, you notice a really sharp increase in enrollment. And the shading in the background of that sort of light blue square covering a portion of each graph, that's the period of time when they started doing data sharing and using it for auto enrollment. And you can see that the enrollment really took off, and you'll learn more about each of these in the case studies. If you're going to do auto enrollment, an important thing to keep in mind is to be sure to budget for that increased enrollment. And frankly, even if it's not auto enrollment, any kind of data sharing where you're leading to an increased participation rate among eligible customers, you want to plan ahead for that so that you don't need to reduce the amount of assistance provided to each participant in order to accommodate more participants. You want to be able to provide the intended level of support for everyone who's eligible. Next slide. So there are different ways to initiate a data sharing approach. It can be done just through proactive outreach to a potential partner program, or in some of our case studies, it was prompted through new legislation or a utility commission order, or the encouragement of elected officials. Data sharing can occur within or between levels of government, or include non-government entities as well. So it may be within a city, two different agencies. It may be a city and a state. It may be an energy utility and a water utility. There's any number of permutations, and they're all reflected in the case studies. It can be done manually, the data matching, with something as simple as Excel spreadsheets, or it can be partially or fully automated through various IT systems. Doing this doesn't require a perfect match of every data field. So setting a bar of expecting perfection in that matching process is going to, I think, hold folks back from beginning to try. You'll hear from these case studies as well that this is workable even without perfect data sets. Next slide. Oops. You go back one. Great. Other themes and findings from the case studies, you can expand to more partners and or improve data sharing processes over time. So this was the point from before, that it's iterative. You don't have to start with everything. You get started, and you can start small and build bigger. You can use this approach with a variety of low-income program designs. So it doesn't only work for the case where everybody who's eligible gets the same benefit. It can also work in a program where there's tiered levels of benefit depending on the income level of the customer. And that's an example you'll hear from Philadelphia. It can be done while maintaining security of personally identifiable information, including obtaining appropriate consent from program participants. That's a mouthful, but it's an important one. It's going to vary depending on which partner programs you're working with. There are often some legal requirements. There are practical concerns as well, but there are ways to do this that you'll see some illustrations in the case studies to maintain that kind of confidentiality and ensure that where consent is needed, that you have a way of ensuring that. And often doing that involves some formal data sharing agreements between the partner programs, and we have links to a couple of examples within the report. Next slide. And finally, just to give you a couple other sketches of a couple of other case studies in the report who you won't hear from in the rest of the presentation. New York, a municipal water utility, they do data sharing with other city agencies, and in particular partnering with the city agencies that administer LIHEAP in New York. The city is so big that it's the city that runs it. And with the Department of Finance in the city that runs various property tax exemption programs specific to low-income homeowners. They're able to exchange data within the city between agencies for auto enrollment. In California, there's cross-enrollment between water and energy utility assistance programs, where the investor-owned, in this case, water and energy utilities are sharing data with each other. The energy programs, assistance programs, have long had a very high participation rate, and through sharing their data with the water utilities, the water is now up to 73% participation rate collectively among the large water investor-owned utilities in California. They've also begun expanding that to be able to share data between the investor-owned energy utilities and publicly owned water systems as well. And then last, in Massachusetts, there's an example of a state taking the lead on sort of instigating, if you will. And in Massachusetts, there are utility-run energy assistance programs that all of the electric and gas companies have, and they're sharing data with the state, with multiple state programs, Medicaid, SNAP, TANF, and they've been doing most of those agencies they've been sharing with, or programs they've been sharing with for many years, and they've expanded it as of last year to include even more. So that's just a taste of what else you'll find in the report. And I'm going to hand off now to our next speaker. And there's the QR code again, also in the chat. You've got the link.
Thanks, Larry. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Sackett, and I am the Water Bill Assistance Program Coordinator for the City of Westminster in Colorado. So we are a suburb on the north side of Denver, and we have a population of around 120,000 residents. We have about 33,500 water accounts, and just over 31,000 of those are for single family residence water accounts, which are the ones that our programs do cover. I have been in this position at this point for just over 6 years. And I work and I live in the city of Westminster. It's not a requirement for our city to live in the city, but I do. So all of my customers that I do serve, they are also residents with me. This is my community that I'm serving. So just to give you a little bit of background on our programs. Back in 2006, our water assistance programs initiated in their original form. The Great Recession was happening, and so it was a response to that economic crisis that the city put together 2 programs, a hardship and a $75 low-income credit program. I am not too certain on what the eligibility requirements were at that time, especially for the hardship program. The low-income program, I do believe, was based upon similar to what it is now, around the 60% area median income. But there was a lot of limited participation in that. I have some numbers listed there. For the hardship program, there was 0 enrollments for the first 3 years of that program. It maxed out in 2010 with 64 participants, averaging about 46 a year between 2009 and 2012. And in 2013, it was back down to 0 enrollments. The low income program, again, you can see very limited participation in those programs, 13 in 2006, only average about 9 a year between 2006 and 2012. And then it dropped off from there to 2015. So in 2017, the city was facing a really large water increase. Like many water utilities, the can kind of got kicked down the road for a number of years as far as water rate increases, until it got to the point that it couldn't be ignored any further, just due to infrastructure needs that were needing to be addressed, that had become critical. So the city council gave a directive to staff at that point in time that they needed to establish or reestablish some form of assistance program to help our lower income customers offset the cost of that rate hike. And also make sure that it included customers that were facing short-term hardship. So not necessarily income-based, but just ones that were just facing a short-term hardship for a period of time. So they reinvented the original programs. We have our low-income bill credit program that was based off 60% area median income. And then our hardship program, which is not an income limited program, it's up to $750 is a one-time credit for short-term loss of income. So that can be loss of a job, major medical issues, really anything that hits your family financially, that it's going to be a loss of income that you would normally have to be able to pay your monthly bills for a period of time. And at the time, these programs were housed within our utility billing department. Next slide. So from 2017 to 2019, we did offer for our bill credit program, a $100 credit every 12 months with an application that was approved or a renewal application that was approved. Starting in 2020 and through today, we do offer still that we've changed to a monthly credit that was based on feedback from our customers, that it was easier for them to budget, especially our seniors, if it was a monthly credit versus a one-time credit every 12 months. Customers must still re-enroll every 12 months to receive that credit. And at this time, it is currently a $25 a month credit, which equals out to $300 a year credit on the customer's water bill assistance. We do also have a caveat with some accountability to our low-income customers that if they have 3 late payments or a disconnection of services within that 12-month period, then that will suspend that monthly credit until they renew on the renewal date. But we always encourage customers to reach out to us before it gets to that point of a late payment or a disconnection of services so that we can work with them to set up some sort of an extension or arrangement payment or things like that if they fall into a situation where they're not able to pay that bill on time. So right now, as of June 2025, this is just an example of what the 60% area median income looks like for us. So customers, it's based on household size. So customers meeting this income or less, then they would be able to qualify for that monthly program. Next slide. So this brings us to the data sharing that we have with LIHEAP. In Colorado, we do refer to it as LEAP. So, but with the data sharing, we were realizing the need to increase the numbers in the program. So we were getting traction. It was better than it was before. However, enrollments were still pretty low. And we really wanted to make sure that we were being able to reach a larger body of our customers in need that we served. So in 2017, we only had 92 enrollments. In 2018, the staff member who had revitalized these programs, he found out that one of the counties that our city lies within was utilizing data sharing with LIHEAP so that they were able to income qualify some of their residents for some income-based assistance programs that they had, whether it was different household improvement projects or other food-based needs or whatever the case was, but they were using that LIHEAP data because the income levels were relatively the same. And so they were able to automatically qualify customers. So in August of 2018, we reached out to the city or to LEAP, and we initiated a data sharing contract between the city of Westminster and LEAP. And with that contract, it is limited to 2 positions within the city that are allowed to actually receive that data from LEAP so that it minimizes any of that PII getting out to places where it doesn't need to be. And then with that contract, we do renew that contract annually. So we typically do it in December, sometimes mid-November for a January start, and it'll go for that full calendar year then. And then we just redo that process each year at the end of the year. So with that, our data sharing with LEAP, they do send over a monthly list to us during LEAP season. So in Colorado, the LEAP season runs from November 1st to April 30th. So they will send me over a monthly list of customers that are approved during that period of time. So typically first week of November, I'll get the first list, and then I will usually get a list through May, sometimes into the first week in June, if there are people that applied before the April 30th date or by the April 30th date, but we're still going through that approval process after the April 30th date. So when I do receive that data, the only information that is included to me for me are the name, address, and zip code. And they do send me over a list that has all the zip codes that fall within the city of Westminster. So there's about 8 different zip codes that fall within our city. There is some overlap with neighboring cities with that. So I actually have to manually go through and remove any of the out of city addresses, as well as any multifamily or mobile home, manufactured home properties, because we don't offer our programs to them any master meter properties at this period of time. And we've looked at doing this automated to be able to put it into, to weed out properties and basically have it go off of our billing system. But what we have found is that the way addresses are inputted, because there are so many people that are approving those through LEAP and putting them into their system, the addresses are not always put in the same way that we put our addresses in for the city of Westminster into our system. So if we were to do something where it automated that check, it would kick out far too many of the eligible customers. So I actually go through manually, and I do check each and every one of those addresses that comes through. So I typically at the beginning of the season will get around 600 to 700 addresses a month. And then it will kind of taper off a little bit each month from there. But I get really good at being able to know what properties, just taking a quick look at them, don't fit after this long. And then if the name does not match a water account, if they are not listed as on the water account, I do actually separate those out as well to come back to later. I can still qualify them, but they just do require a little bit of extra documentation to show me that they are residing at that property at this time and that they are responsible for that water bill payment. Okay, next slide. So initially when we started this data sharing contract in 2018, we were using the customer data for outreach only. So we were sending letters out to the customers saying, hey, we know that you income qualify for this program. Here's an application. I don't need any backup documentation for income. I just need you to fill this out for me and send it back in. And then we would get people enrolled that way. Unfortunately, this was not very efficient. It would take a lot of time on my end, as well as it really didn't have a great rate of return on it. So I was looking at 50% or less rate of return doing it this way. So we were trying to figure out what can we do to increase it. Now, that being said, it wasn't a total waste of time, because it did increase enrollments from what it was pre-data sharing. So as you can see, from the first half of 2018, the first 7 months, we only had 57 customers in 2018 that were enrolled into our monthly bill credit program. Once we were able to start reaching out for the outreach, promoting the program, we were able to significantly raise that. In the last 5 months of the year, we got 158 customers. So it was still worthwhile. It still just wasn't super efficient. It wasn't capturing as many people as we were hoping. Next slide. In 2019, we moved my position, and this is when I came in 2019, we moved the position out of utility billing. What we were finding is that there was a little bit of a conflict of interest, conflict in mentality in the collecting revenue side of utility billing versus giving money away through the water bill assistance programs. So there were a lot of constraints that were still being placed on customers, such as payment history. If they had a history of making late payments or disconnection of services, those were being used to disqualify these customers for enrollment. Whereas the way that others were looking at it was that, hey, these are reasons to show why these customers really are the ones most in need. So they decided to move it out of utility billing, put it into a different department within Public Works. And I came into the picture at that point. So in 2020, we did start using that data to expand outreach for some of our other programs. We started using it for COVID-related programs. We had 2 different COVID-related programs that we had from 2020 through 2023. And then in mid-November of 2020, we started auto enrollment. So I was on a webinar. There was another city that was talking about how they used that data that they had, and they just cut out the whole application process for those customers and started auto-enrolling. So we did start auto-enrolling, and at the same time, we also changed from using the term low income to income qualified. We found that there seemed to be a little bit of a stigma sometimes with the word low income, and that income qualified was better received by customers. So as you can see with the auto enrollment, it greatly increased. It is skewed a little bit in 2020 just because there was such a large influx of new customers that I was able to enroll at the end of the year. So it does skew a little bit on the impact of the percentage of auto enrollments. But if you look every year after that, we are hovering around 56 to 59%. And even this year, it's tracking as of the end of last week. We're at about 58% of the customers enrolled in our program were auto enrollments. And this is just a little bit larger look of Larry's graph, which gives you a little bit of an idea. So the light blue, that represents the auto enrollments with our cities. So it's been a great program to be able to do that. And having that has allowed us to build relationships with LIHEAP within the state of Colorado. So when LIWAP came around, and LIWAP was actually run through LEAP, so we were able to work with LEAP and help them get some information that they needed to make that program successful on their end, which then benefited our customers in return. So some benefits that we found is, as Larry and Olivia both have said, the number one thing is it removes barriers for enrollment. It cuts out the middleman. Those that are seeking assistance, those that are in need, typically are operating in crisis. And as Olivia said, there are so many, the duplication of processes for each program. So this just removes that, allows us to take that out of it. It increases our retention, continues our retention, initiates contact with hard to reach customers, those that we wouldn't have been able to contact or start having conversations with otherwise. And it also helps to establish some trust with some of our income qualified customers. So they start to see the city as somebody that they can reach out to, somebody they can trust to lean on, somebody they can ask for help. And like I just touched on before, it also has helped us to foster that relationship with our LEAP staff for the state of Colorado. And then we're able to, once we get people in our monthly bill credit program, we're able then to automatically qualify them or enroll them into other city assistance programs. So we do have a leak repair program for income qualified homeowners that covers up to $3,000 of indoor repairs that they are automatically qualified for should the need be there. We have a toilet replacement program, our indoor efficiency program that does an indoor water assessment, provides high efficiency shower heads, sink aerators, and up to 2 toilets replaced for free. We do partner with Mile High Youth Corps in that. And if they are enrolled into our monthly bill credit program, they're automatically enrolled into that toilet replacement program. So I do send over a monthly list of eligible customers to Mile High Youth Corps each month and let them go ahead and contact customers. And then I also let customers know that they'll be receiving that information. We do also, living in a high desert here in Colorado, water is a very, very important resource for us. So we are definitely working towards encouraging customers to start taking out turf and planting water-wise plants. So we do have a garden in a box program, which is kind of a plant by numbers with water-wise plants. And if you are one of our income qualified monthly bill credit program customers, you can receive a $100 discount for that garden in a box program for ordering one of their different boxes. So it's been really, really good for that. And then it also allows me, I didn't have this on the slide, but it also allows me, if I'm working with the customers and they need an arrangement, payment arrangement or things like that, I actually have the ability to give a longer period of time for that payment arrangement than our billing department does for the customers. So there's that added benefit that they can have a little more time, break down any arrangement monthly payments to a smaller amount, which makes it a little more tangible for them. Challenges with this, staff capacity. It greatly increases the enrollment. So make sure you have staff capacity. We are finding that to be a challenge in my city right now because it is me, myself, and I that run these programs. And at this point in time, I am a part-time employee. We are working on trying to get that up to full-time status, but at this point I am part-time, so I really am at capacity. And unfortunately, face-to-face outreach has suffered due to that, but I find that the priority line in ensuring I can get as many customers enrolled as possible is paramount, and then any leftover time that I can work on any additional outreach within the community. Funding limitations, as Larry said, make sure you have enough budget, make sure you have enough funding, because ours has greatly increased. And I was lucky enough to be able to go to city council last year and get a very big budget increase for my programs. Otherwise, we were going to be looking at potentially having to not be able to qualify people once we ran out of money for the year, or have to stop people's monthly benefit until the next calendar year rolled around. So funding limitations are a really real thing. Make sure that you kind of have some projections or ideas of what you need to ask for. Different utility and municipality priorities can also come into play. If you have money or staff that needs to be prioritized towards sewer improvement projects, any water treatment plant issues, any mainline lead removal, any of these kind of things, sometimes that can take away from them prioritizing customer assistance programs. So that's something to really keep in mind. Also, state, county, or local rules and regulations can come into play. I do know there's some states that don't allow, or they make it very difficult to do the data sharing. So things like that, those are really good things to take a look at and see where those boundaries are and what you can and cannot do within your local area or state. And then for the state of Colorado, for any utilities that are wanting to enter into these data sharing contracts, at this point in time, LEAP has notified me that they're not currently entering into any new data sharing contracts for the time being, because Colorado is currently standardizing all data sharing agreements across all agencies and departments in the state. So until everything is done and dusted with that, they are not going to be starting new contracts. They're upholding existing ones. But that is something that I know that LEAP is not doing. I'm not sure within the state of Colorado if other agencies such as SNAP and TANF or anything are doing data sharing contracts. Again, going back to that staff capacity, I have not had the ability to reach out to SNAP, reach out to TANF or any other agencies to see if we can start entering into these data sharing agreements. I just don't unfortunately have the capacity at this time. And I do have my information there at the bottom. If anybody has any further questions and wants to reach out to me directly, there's my information, and I'd love to hear from you. And thanks for your time.
Thanks, Heather. It looks like we've got a bunch of questions in the chat, which is awesome. And we'll turn it over to our next speaker, Susan and Casey. Can't remember who's going first.
I think Susan's going to speak first, but I will introduce myself so that I don't have to do that mid-presentation. Hi, everyone. My name is Casey Henderson. I'm the Director of Research, Analytics, and Evaluation at the Office of Integrated Data for Evidence and Action. We call ourselves IDEA within the city of Philadelphia. And I'll be doing the latter half of the presentation, so I'll turn it over to Susan.
Thanks, Casey. My name is Susan Crosby. I'm the Deputy Revenue Commissioner for Water with the City of Philadelphia. I want to thank the Water Center for hosting this webinar today, and to Larry and Olivia for including Philadelphia in their as a case study in their report. If you could move forward to the next slide. Philadelphia is a little weird. We operate between two different departments. The Philadelphia Water Department, I like to say, is river to meter. They handle all of the infrastructure, and the Department of Revenue, where I am seated, handles meter to cash. We handle the billing and collections, and we also administer the programs. A few things that are important about Philadelphia is that we are a majority minority population with a median income of $56,000. Nearly half of our population is enrolled in Medicaid. 21% live in deep poverty. 21% live in poverty and 9.7% live in deep poverty. Next slide. In in consideration of time, I'm going to skip over this slide. It basically shows how we have changed our mindset about water security from before, during, and after COVID. Next slide. So we do have a hybrid approach. First, we look at protections. We recognize that water shutoffs can be traumatic and that trauma can be generational, and that not all vulnerable customers are low income. They may be senior citizens, households with children, household members with disabilities. And in auto enrollment, we realized that our current application process had very high barriers to enrollment, and our customers were self-selecting and not applying. And therefore, we knew, based on census data, that we were not reaching everyone who qualified. Next slide.
Come off mute there. So as Susan laid out, Philadelphia serves a lot of highly vulnerable residents. And so in rethinking our water security policy, one of the questions is, how do we best serve those residents with what we already have available? And there are three kind of key pieces to this equation that I wanted to highlight. And the first is the reason I'm here, which is the built infrastructure that we already had around data sharing within the city. And I'll get a little more into that in the next slide. The second piece of that is the ability to use that built infrastructure to figure out who those vulnerable groups of people that we want to protect and auto enroll are. And then lastly is collaboration. This effort would not have been possible without the collaboration of all of our city departments, really, all of the ones who feed into our shared data capacity, and then very distinct partnerships between water revenue, our group, people from Health and Human Services, people in the water department. So it was really like a all hands on deck effort to make this a reality. We can go to the next slide. So what are administrative data and what is my office's responsibility in terms of supporting this project? The integrated data system was built decades ago and basically integrates data from 7 key source systems that are internal to the city. And our goal is to support the major priorities of the managing director and the mayor. So we support a variety of projects, and this is one of the projects that we support. And so you can see from what we call our data peacock here, what those 7 key source systems are. They obviously collect very different types of data, but we like to sort of say they harmonize across the things you see on the right there, those common attributes. And this build capacity allows us to know that the Casey Henderson we see in vital statistics is the same Casey Henderson that we see in DBH-IDS, right? It allows us to know who people are across departments so that we're not living in silos, that our data exists in sort of one central repository. We can go to the next slide. And so we leveraged that existing capacity for this particular project to sort of, for these dual purposes of protecting people from shutoff, auto enrolling them into payment assistance programs. And we took water customer data and we matched it to those 7 source system databases to allow us to say, we're pretty confident this water customer here is this person that we saw in one of these departments. And then we leveraged means tested program data, age data, and rental property data for the first purpose of protecting households from shutoff. And then for the second purpose of an auto enrollment into TAP, we used only the means tested data, and we upped our confidence level in the match, right? In the match between who we're seeing in the water customer files and who we're seeing in our integrated data warehouse. We can go to the next slide. And then we created a process which persists to this day. It's a monthly process and partnership between us, water revenue, and the water department, where we receive customer files, we match that into our data warehouse, And then we create files that go back into the water customer database and allow the Water Revenue Bureau to say, hey, these households should be protected from shut off. These households should be auto enrolled into payment assistance programs.
Great, thanks, Casey. So first, we're going to look at the first part of our hybrid policy to water security, which is protecting vulnerable groups from shutoff. So as you can see, we have drastically expanded the number of accounts we are protecting from shutoff. In the beginning, we only protected people who were in payment agreements and people who had letters from their doctors or were protected by state statutes as tenants. With our work with IDEA, we expanded that to include means tested customers. And then after that, we expanded even further to include households with children, seniors, and persons with disabilities. And so you can see that with each iteration of the protections, the number of people that were protected increases almost exponentially. And it's important to recognize that we are protecting these customers from shutoff regardless of their delinquent status. Before implementing these protections in 2002, there were about 72,000 customers eligible for shutoff with delinquencies totaling $175 million. After we applied the protections, there were about 28,000 customers eligible for shutoff. So we reduced it by almost 50,000 customers. But the delinquency remained at 129 million. So we protected over 50,000 customers from being shut off without really cutting into the amount of the delinquent receivable that we could try to collect. We cut the pool by 60%, and the actionable receivable was only cut by 25%. Next slide, please. And now let's look at the second part of the hybrid approach. As Casey mentioned, in our first round, we had a low confirmation rate. I forget the word, but confidence. We had a low confidence level that we used because we knew that it was important to protect as many people as we could from shutoff. But when it came to enrolling accounts through auto enrollment, we raised that confidence level. So because we knew that we were going to be putting people into assistance programs, and our assistance programs are paid for by our ratepayers. So we needed to take that into consideration as well. We first did a pilot pre-qualifying our LIWOP grant recipients in April 2023. When we did that, we had 14,800 program participants. Our LIWOP program, the pilot, auto-enrolled 3,200 customers into that program. So it was a proof of concept. And that is when we partnered with IDEA. Again, we expanded our partnership and raised that confidence level to auto-enroll our customers. And so we did a first big push, much like Heather did, and we had over 36,000 customers auto-enrolled in that first tranche. And then we've continued with monthly files. And as of May of this year, we have over 45,000 customers have been enrolled in our assistance program, TAP, via auto-enrollment. As of May, we have a total of 65,600 TAP customers and a total of 82,000 customers, including those TAP customers that are receiving income-based water assistance. The auto-enrollment program almost tripled the participation in zip codes that were most at risk of shutoff. And we increased our participation, our program participation, by over 430%. Next slide.
And then we have just some key takeaways. I know we're a bit short on time, so I think maybe we can cut this short and just say we've protected a lot of people from water shutoff. We've auto-enrolled a ton of people in payment assistance, and we use sort of existing data capacity to move quickly and leverage what we could. And additional refinements were made across time. And really the key for all of this, more so than data is great and important and crucial, but partnership and coordination across agencies has really been sort of the driving force behind this effort. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Casey and Susan, and Larry and Olivia and Heather. This has been great. I think we have some time for a couple of questions. Larry, I just wanted to reach out to you and see, I think you had answered the one question that you were going to answer live. So I think we're good with that. If I can just move on. Okay, awesome. So folks, just to note that some of the answers have been answered in the Q&A section here and under the answered tab. I know sometimes it looks a little hidden. So I'm going to flip to the first question. Heather, I think you're typing an answer to one of the questions. Do you want to answer first or?
Sure. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, the question is about the conflict of reporting structure and your position being associated with billing, and if you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So with that, yes, I am the only person that's managing the program at this point in time. So I do work basically side by side with utility billing. So the way that it's structured. So we both have the same, the utility billing supervisor has the same direct report as I do. So we work side by side. I do communicate with them on a regular basis. If we have any complex situations with customers, we communicate very well and work really well together to try to kind of figure out a good resolution. So we have a really great working relationship together. It was really at that point in time in 2019, the mentality within the billing department was much different. There was very short extensions for periods of time for repayment, limited payment arrangement options. So we were able to expand that and work. Sorry, I'm losing where I was. Okay. So we were able to expand that, also take away those barriers of denial due to payment history or things like that, which has been really great to increase enrollment. And as far as it moving to increase visibility and productivity, yeah, it initially was a 10-hour a week position. So, or 10 hours work that one customer service agent dedicated to the assistance program. So she would take 10 hours 1 day a week and work on the programs, where now this is all that I do. So we were able to, it's gone from just about 30 hours a week from 10 hours a week. So much more productivity. I've been able to establish great relationships with a lot of community players and continue to try to do my outreach as I can within the community. So
Thanks,
hopefully
Heather.
that answers the question.
Yeah. Susan, I saw that do you want to answer that as well?
Yeah, so much like Heather thought that it would be best to separate, we do have separate divisions within the Water Revenue Bureau. We have a customer assistance division who handles our unified application for water assistance. And we actually have a staff of 20 in that office, and that is separate and apart from our collections division. So because we do have two dual roles, we have the billing and collections, and we have the administration of assistance program, we do have the separate divisions that do that. And it's part of it is due to the size of our utility as to Heather's, but also to the commitment of making sure that we get as many people onto the program as possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Susan. I think we have time for one more question. And actually, there's one question that I think a bunch of folks may have. Do your rate assistance programs end up increasing rates for residents who are not income qualified? How do you respond to complaints from non-income qualified customers that they are subsidizing costs for income qualified customers? And that's from an anonymous attendee. So I don't know, somebody else? Yeah, Susan.
I'll take a strike at it. So we have a rate structure where every year we have a cost recovery mechanism for our low income assistance program. and it's a rider that is adjusted every year. Our rates are normally set 2 years at a time, but this rider is adjusted annually. And so a portion of the cost of the program is borne by our general rate base, which includes residential and commercial customers. But the customers who are on the program have a consistent monthly bill that does not change regardless of whether rates go up or the change from the rate rider. So it is subsidized. We have not had any complaints during any of our rate case proceedings or from any of our customers about the program being subsidized.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Susan. I'm recognizing that we are a little over time, so thanks for folks for sticking with us. This has been great. A reminder that you can review and download the full report, turn on the tap, increasing participation in water affordability at the link in the chat. We'll be sharing the recording and the slides, which will also include the webinar chat questions. So yeah, so thanks for everybody for participating, and thanks so much for our speakers and our partners and co-hosts for all their work on this.